Exclusive contracted novel by Feilu Novel Network. Journey to the West, Changsheng. Starting from the Double Fork Ridge devouring armor, however, as soon as Wang Xiao, a social animal who loved handmade armor, opened his eyes, he realized that he had become one of the two followers of the famous Chen Xuanzang who died before he succeeded in his apprenticeship, and had already fallen into the big trap that caused the original two followers to die. The West Heaven Sutra Collection may seem peaceful and playful, but in reality, it is a multi-party entanglement and a tug-of-war that has already begun. Wang Xiao, who didn't want to die, wanted to struggle for a while. At least he didn't want to be caught and chewed by monsters like in the original story. So, Wang Xiao put on his own bright armor, but who knew that with the treasure armor on, everything was different. Wang Xiao made a living in the mouth of the monster, and also pulled up the flag of Li Erfeng and related parties to tug and entangle. In the struggle and entanglement, Wang Xiao gradually walked towards a path he had never thought of before. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Falling into a Pit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the darkness, Wang Xiao felt someone pushing him harder and harder, and a voice with a Guangzhong accent called out beside him, "Good brother, Wang Xiao, good brother, wake up, wake up." Wang Xiao slowly opened his eyes and saw a handsome young monk wearing a 5 Buddha crown, dressed in a robe, with red lips and white teeth, fair skin, eyebrows and soap, and ears that seemed to be hanging down his shoulders, looking at him with a worried expression. What a handsome monk! Wang Xiao, who spoke in praise, turned his head slightly and looked at the handsome monk next to him. He was a scholar named Hu Junyi, dressed in a green robe, with slightly yellow skin and a goat, and said, "Oh, this one looks not bad either." The scholar looked young, around 25.6 years old, and his hand was still on Wang Xiao's arm. Wang Xiao suddenly realized that it was him who the scholar had just pushed and shouted, "What's wrong? What's pushing me for?" The literati and monk breathed a sigh of relief when they saw Wang Xiao waking up and still able to speak, but Wang Xiao frowned and asked the scholar in confusion, "Ah, why are you still wearing ancient clothes?" The scholar was somewhat puzzled and said, "Wang Xiao, have you fallen into confusion?" "Fall? Why did it fall? Didn't I fall asleep playing games on the hospital bed? How could it fall? Did you drop your phone?" Wang Xiao half stood up and sat up. The monk and scholar quickly stepped back and made way, allowing Wang Xiao to look around. However, upon seeing this, Wang Xiao felt that something was wrong. But at this moment, the sky was half bright and only a small ball was visible, surrounded by soil walls with excavation marks. This is... Wang Xiao squinted his eyes and pondered for a moment, suddenly realizing that his group was located in a large pit 5 or 6 meters deep. "Brother, let's fall into a pit." Wang Xiao was about to ask, but he felt that the touch of his hands on the ground was a bit strange, but it was soft and hard, and there was also a feeling of plush. Wang Xiao looked down and suddenly realized that he was lying on a horse that was lying down and not moving. He followed the horse and saw that there were 3 horses overlapping with the sitting one. What's going on? Sigh. Wang Xiao was shocked in his heart. Suddenly, there was a huge pain in the back of his head. Wang Xiao took a deep breath of cold air, and then a wave of memories came over. I am Wang Xiao, who was trained in the hospital due to overwork, and also the Tang Dynasty left Qianyo guard Qianyo bodyguard Wang Xiao. The cultured Wang Xiao in the hospital was ordinary, but he was just an ancient armor enthusiast who stayed up late and had a blood pressure drop and was not allowed to enter the hospital. However, the Tang Dynasty left Qianyo guard Qianyo bodyguard Wang Xiao was different. He was born under the direct lineage of the Prince of Taiyuan, with both civil and military skills, and was ordered by the Tang Emperor to go west for official work. The Tang Emperor who released this mission to Wang Xiao is truly amazing. He is a literary and military strategist, unparalleled throughout history, and has created one of the greatest divine generals of China, the Emperor Taizong of the Tang Dynasty, Li Erfeng. The person with the appearance of a scholar is named Du Jin, who is a PhD and Secretary General of the Imperial Academy, and was also ordered by the Emperor to go west. What is the specific task assigned by Li Erfeng to Wang Xiao and Du Jin? Wang Xiao's gaze couldn't help but turn to the handsome white monk. This monk is handsome, has a Buddha-like nature, and most importantly, this guy has a name that is comparable, even more widely circulated than Li Erfeng. Chen Xuanzang. So, it is clear at a glance that Wang Xiao and Du Jin received Li Erfeng's explicit imperial decree to seek the Mahayana Buddhist scriptures from Chen Xuanzang to the west. Taking scriptures from the west. What a great cause! For masters and disciples from the Western Heaven group, along with a horse that will last forever, have you ever heard of a servant named Wang Xiao? For Chen Xuanzang and his 3 disciples, obtaining scriptures from the Western Heaven could bring fame and fortune for generations, and even ascend to the lotus platform. However, for Wang Xiao and the scholar Du Jin, this was simply the path of the Western Heavenly Yellow Spring where they would die right out of the door. In his past life, Wang Xiao watched TV, novels, and comics as a child, enjoying the excitement and joy of watching them. He regarded the journey of seeking scriptures in the Western Heaven as a great adventure. However, as he grew up, Wang Xiao realized that all of this was just a game played by the Buddha and the Jade Emperor together. The big picture. The distance between the Buddha and the Jade Emperor is too far for Wang Xiao to reach, but currently, he is deeply trapped in this situation, and how to save his life is the key. Wang Xiao, who had sorted out the current situation, fell into a trap upon seeing his own environment ahead of him, causing his 4 horses to fall and die, leaving the 3 of them at a loss. Today at dawn, a group of 3 rode out of Fuyuan Temple in Hezhou, but fell into a trap after only a dozen miles. I don't know how many times I have read the Book of Shai and how many versions of Journey to the West, but Wang Xiao suddenly jumped up and exclaimed in fear, "Not good, it's going to happen." Scholar Du Jin and monk Xuanzang both looked at Wang Xiao with a calm expression. At this point, of course, the situation is unfortunate, with the body falling into a pit and the horse losing its life. Is this still possible? General Wang, there's nothing wrong. We just fell into a trap by mistake. When the poachers come over, they will definitely rescue us. Chen Xuanzang's face was calm and light. Du Jin also didn't take it seriously and said with a smile, "My dear brother, that's right. This pit is so big, I think it's used to trap fierce beasts like tigers. When the pit owner comes back to inspect, he will definitely rescue us." It doesn't matter if Chen Xuanzang's demeanor is calm, but you, Du Jin, this big pit is simply created by Xiong Shanjun, Te Chusher, and General Yin, these tiger spirit beasts, specifically targeting the 2 of us. Wang Xiao glared at Du Jin in anger, but couldn't express what he was saying in his heart. "It's going to be a disaster, Du Jin." Wang Xiao angrily called out to Du Jin, who couldn't see the situation clearly. Du Jin, who was inexplicably holding on to his older brother, felt a little angry in his heart and felt that Wang Xiao was being impolite. Then he turned his head and ignored Wang Xiao, walking to the side. Suddenly, Du Jin, who was walking to the side, stumbled with garlic under his feet and almost fell. "What is it?" After standing firm, Du Jin kicked a bit displeased, but he kicked the things under his feet and scattered a set of rolled-up armor. Seeing the scattered armor, Wang Xiao suddenly remembered that it was his bright light armor rolled up on a pack horse. Wang Xiao was overjoyed and took 2 steps forward to pull out and open the entire armor. "Quickly, Brother Du, let me wear armor." Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 2. Facing the Demons in Reverse. You are listening at novelfull.audio. My dear brother. Du Jin shook his head indifferently, but Wang Xiao glared angrily and shouted, stop talking nonsense. Hurry up. Wang Xiao, born in the year of the ox, has exceptional martial arts skills. Although he is the youngest and lowest ranked in the current scripture collection group, his strength is the strongest. With such a ferocious face, when he roared in anger, Du Jin was startled, and Chen Xuanzang trembled all over. Immediately, Du Jin rushed forward to help Wang Xiao with his armor, while Chen Xuanzang stood dumbfounded on the spot. Don't want to die, help. Wang Xiao roared at the handsome monk again. Oh, oh. Chen Xuanzang hurriedly stepped forward, never putting on armor, and had never even seen him break down the armor without wearing it a few times. After a flurry of helplessness, Chen Xuanzang finally found his position and began to tie straps for Wang Xiao on the side. Chen Xuanzang had little experience, but Du Jin, a PhD secretary from Jingzhou, had seen an experienced hand who had worn it before. Therefore, even if Chen Xuanzang dragged his feet, Wang Xiao's armor would wear quickly. Hoo hoo hoo. Woo 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 woo. The armor on Wang Xiao's body was gradually being put on, but outside the deep pit, there was a sudden gust of wind, sobbing and making loud sounds, which was really frightening. The originally bright crater also darkened, and when the sun was shining high at noon, it was indeed like a dark moon in the sky. The wind blows in the woods, ghosts mourn and cry, clouds suppress the sky, and the sun is low with no light. Chen Xuanzang, who had not seen much of the world before, was frightened by this scene and his face became even whiter. Even Du Jin's hand, which was giving Wang Xiao a proper armor, trembled slightly. Wang Xiao, what's going on? Why does this wind sound so scary? Wang Xiao, however, did not hear Du Jin's words because he was wearing armor, but suddenly heard a clear spiritual sound in his ear. Detected Tang-style Mingguang composite armor, is it attached? Wang Xiao was somewhat surprised and couldn't help but reply, what? That's the wind. Attached. What? After a while of talking with chickens and ducks, Wang Xiao heard another sound in his ear, but coincidentally, Du Jin was also speaking, so he didn't hear it clearly. Wang Xiao was anxious in his heart, and suddenly a panel appeared in front of him, but it was clearly written, obtain basic armor, stamina 15, basic defense, all attributes, 15, lock God, constant sense, and nourishment. Lock God. Before the armor is completely destroyed, the soul is fixed in the body and not affected by external factors. Constant sense. Before the armor is completely destroyed, the armor can withstand all types of attacks. Nourishment. The armor is intact, and it can nourish the body, accelerate the recovery of various types of damage. If the armor is damaged, but not completely destroyed, one can use their own essence and blood to repair the armor. Wang Xiao, 19 years old, was a Han Chinese from the Great Tang Dynasty. He was from Taiyuan and was appointed as the general of the Western Yang Wei by the Great Tang Dynasty. Horizontal knife 6 kills, premium, level 7, Wang's swordsmanship 18 styles, premium, level 9, ordinary army bowing, premium, level 6, ordinary army cavalry, premium, level 9, improved cavalry and shooting, premium, level 5, hunting, skinning and muscle extraction. At this moment, the sound of the wind outside the pit changed again, not the whimpering cries of ghosts, but the howling sounds, which were even more frightening. Coming. Upon hearing the sound outside the pit, Wang Xiao furrowed his brow. However, he pulled out a horizontal knife and a barrier knife from his death horse and hung them on his walking belt. He also held his 1000-ox knife in his hand, and then used his foot with his shoe armor fastened in his hand in his armor to pound and smash on the smooth pit wall. Soon, he smashed several cavities, and Wang Xiao climbed up along those cavities. Before climbing to the top, there were over a dozen blue-faced fangs and hair-covered heads exposed at the top of the pit. Wow! Chen Xuanzang saw those buttocks sitting on the ground with their heads down, and Du Jin's face turned pale. He pointed to the top of the pit and shouted at Wang Xiao, good brother, monster. Wang Xiao, who was climbing, kept looking up and couldn't help but see those terrifying heads. However, Wang Xiao was already prepared in her heart, and with the addition of various horror films, she watched quite a few demonic films. She also saw many scary things, but she wasn't too afraid. Wang Xiao kicked his feet fiercely and jumped up, but his hand grabbed towards a head with a pair of curved corners on its head. With a tug, Wang Xiao's body leaped up and out of the pit, and the white-headed curved corner monster was brought down to the edge of the pit. Puzzy. With a sudden sound of a knife piercing into the flesh, blood and flesh flew down. The white-headed monster with horns was directly cut off by Wang Xiao, who swung his 1000-ox knife to cut it off. The monster's upper body fell straight into the pit, while its lower body landed on the edge of the pit top, with a large amount of fragments flowing down the pit wall accompanied by blood. Then, on top of the large pit, there was a scream of beasts mixed with the collision of Jin Feng and the sound of weapons entering the body. After about a dozen breaths, the sound of battle suddenly disappeared. Wang Xiao. Brother Wang Xiao, what's going on above? Du Jin, who was staring blankly at the half-cut monster corpse in the air, suddenly shouted loudly in the pit, but Wang Xiao did not respond to him at all. Du Jin frowned and squatted on the belly of the dead horse, pondering. Chen Xuanzang cautiously leaned over and whispered, "Mr. Du, what's going on?" Du Jin replied, "Wang Xiao shouldn't have lost, otherwise the monsters will come and take us. There should be some powerful monster coming up, and Wang Xiao's wise brother is confronting him. Don't distract him." Chen Xuanzang was shocked when he heard this, but who knew that Du Jin suddenly stood up, rummaged back and forth on several horses for a while, and then took out a blocked sword and a crossbow, but greeted Chen Xuanzang and said, "Let's go up and help." Ah! Ah! Chen Xuanzang's face was full of fear, while Du Jin without saying a word put the string crossbow into Chen Xuanzang's hand. "Ah, what, go up." Du Jin then inserted the barrier knife into his belt, grabbed Chen Xuanzang with his back hand, and climbed up along the groove in the pit wall that Wang Xiao had previously carved. Amitabha Buddha, Amitabha Buddha. Chen Xuanzang, holding the weapon in his hand, hurriedly chanted the Buddhist name and was pulled upwards. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 3. Having the gallbladder and coming to take it. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After a moment, Du Jin forcefully dragged Chen Xuanzang to the top of the pit and got to the ground. It was not far from the front of the pit that Wang Xiao saw, holding a 1000-ox sword in both hands, carefully guarding a big man with a Chinese character face and gold armor. But I saw the big man with golden armor, his eyes shining like lightning, his mouth wide on one side, and his two pointed and long canine teeth protruding from his lips. His mouth was surrounded by needle-like beards, and his body was strong. His back and chest were bulging, supported by the golden breastplate on his half-body. What was even more terrifying was his hands, which were as big as a fan, and his 10 fingers were as thin as radishes. His steel claws were sharp, shining with a cold light that was truly frightening. The golden-armored Great Han was actually feeling uneasy in his heart. The people he met were always scared to death when they saw its appearance. Who knew that the person in front of him, dressed in beautiful armor, did not show any signs of fear? Moreover, he held a sword and defended himself, with no flaws in his body, making him hesitant to attack. The situation froze here. But at this moment, the two people who came up from the bottom of the pit were just like the others. After seeing it, their legs were weak and numb, and they were frightened. What's even more, the bald monk had to fall and sit on the ground, which gave it a chance. The golden-armored man immediately thundered in his chest, and a roar suddenly hit him like a thunderous wave, shaking the trees in the forest and shaking the ground. Chen Xuanzang, who was about to climb up from the pit, was already limping all over, and was further provoked by a roar. It was a double-legged battle, and the crossbow in his hand could no longer be held. He threw it to the ground and let out a scream. He involuntarily slipped down and fell to the ground, but it was a bad thing. He looked up and pulled down towards the pit, and Du Jin's face turned pale. At least he could barely stand still. Seeing Chen Xuanzang about to fall back into the pit, he shouted and pulled back, "Elder Chen." Wang Xiao was also distracted by Du Jin's shout, and instinctively turned his head to look back. At this moment, the golden-armored and steel-bearded man had the opportunity, transforming into a whirlwind and rushing towards Wang Xiao. Chen Xuanzang, who was lifted up by Du Jin's legs, looked up and saw the golden-armored man, who was as fierce as a tiger in the wind. He hastily shouted, "Ah, General Wang, be careful." After turning his head, Wang Xiao felt the evil wind coming and immediately understood the situation. He didn't even use Chen Xuanzang's reminder. Wang Xiao quickly retreated and thrust his 1,000-bull knife horizontally upwards, only to hear a crisp, ding-ding sound. However, the 1,000-bull treasure knife shattered into about 10 pieces and fell to the ground. Squeaky 10 sharp and piercing noises suddenly came to a sudden halt, transforming into a vicious wind. However, the golden-armored man stopped his physical attack, while his crossed waving claws pressed against Wang Xiao's armor and remained motionless, stopping in front of his chest. The golden-armored man stared at Wang Xiao's armor, his eyes full of disbelief. Meanwhile, Wang Xiao took advantage of the stunned golden-armored man and retreated a few steps to a safe distance. Wang Xiao stood still, first taking a surprised look at the stunned golden-armored man. He was secretly surprised by his sharp claws, and then lowered his head to look at the protective goggles on his chest, which had 10 crossed white marks. He secretly rejoiced in the defensive power of his composite bright light armor. Looking forward, I looked at the fragments of the 1,000-ox knife on the ground with some heartache. This sword was personally gifted by His Majesty Li Erfeng today, on the day when he became the 1,000-ox bodyguard of Emperor Erfeng. It came from the former Sui dynasty and is now known as the 100,000-ox treasure knife, numbered 3115. Wang Xiao pulled out the horizontal sword from his waist with a backhand, and the golden-armored man's gaze at Wang Xiao's armor changed from shock to fiery heat. He raised his finger to Wang Xiao's armor and asked, "What kind of armor are you?" Wang Xiao, who drew out his horizontal sword, slapped the back of his sword against his chest protective goggles and proudly shouted with the crisp sound of gold and iron, "Tang Mingguan armor." "Good baby." The golden-armored man exclaimed joyfully, lifting his paws and shouting, "I want it from a certain family." "Ha!" Wang Xiao sneered and turned his horizontal knife forward, shouting fiercely, "If you have the courage, come and take it." The golden-armored man was furious and swung his claws to kill the general. Wang Xiao, who understood that his claws were sharp, didn't need to use a horizontal knife to collide with the golden-armored man's claws. He just kept moving and dodging, and when he had a chance, he gave him a knife. However, the golden-armored man's skin was also hard and rough, and Wang Xiao's horizontal knife couldn't cut through it. Of course, the golden-armored man's claws also had no choice but to take Wang Xiao's bright armor. Wang Xiao and the golden-armored Great Han fought for more than 10 rounds, but another demonic wind and black clouds surged in. Ghosts and wolves were howling and approaching, and Wang Xiao and the golden-armored Great Han took the opportunity to separate and confront each other again. The gloomy wind and mist rolled closer, and the small demons in the field were overjoyed. The golden-armored man who was facing Wang Xiao also showed a hint of relief on his face. Wang Xiao saw it clearly and raised his guard in his heart. At the same time, the spot behind him, who was not looking back, shouted, "Brother Du, be careful." Du Jin also understood that another monster had arrived. He drew out his sword, held a crossbow in his hand, and stepped forward to protect Chen Xuanzang. "Don't worry, young man, I will definitely protect Elder Chen. Take good care of yourself, they have their own protection." Wang Xiao replied in a low voice, feeling angry. Of course, Wang Xiao's voice was so low that he heard it himself. "Xiong Shanjun and Te Chusher are here. A sharp chant came from the gloomy wind and mist. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 4. Two demons and Salty helps each other. You are listening at novel full.audio. The sound fell, and dozens of little demons around them were even more lively. The golden armored man also retreated a few steps and waited on his side, but his gaze was still fixed on Wang Xiao. In the black wind, a black man with a mysterious armor stepped out, followed by a fat man. The black man had a thick waist and a long body, with a majestic black armor. Outside his armor, he also had black hair attached to him. His hair was extremely thick, and even his face was covered in black beard, revealing only his square nose, big mouth, and a pair of squinting eyes. The chubby man behind him was wearing a blue robe, a double-horned crown on his head, high shoulders and back, large arms and a round waist. He walked with a strong and heavy posture, swaying 3 times as he walked. The black man pointed at Wang Xiao and asked in confusion, "General Yin, how did they run out?" Gong. General Yin bowed and clasped his fists at the black man and the chubby man in a blue robe, and replied, "When someone came, they came out. Just come out and come out, don't worry." The black man waved his hand and greeted the little monsters around him, saying, "Little ones, take those 3 people. Take 1 person and you can enjoy 1 thigh tonight." The black man pointed at Chen Xuanzang, who was trembling, and said, "That monk doesn't need to be used today. Take 2 out of 3 and leave 1 for tomorrow. But if you hold on to that monk, you can split the leg with that scholar. Kill." The little demons who had been scared after being killed by Wang Xiao for a while before rushed over again under the stimulation of blood eating. Wang Xiao wielded his sword to fight against the group of demons. These little demons looked blue-faced and had sharp teeth, big and thick, and their bodies wrapped around their armor were either covered in hair or covered in shell armor. However, their actual combat power was extremely weak, and the average level was estimated to be the level of ordinary human warriors. Even though Wang Xiao used to be a master with high martial arts skills and skilled horse steps, he was still an ordinary person no matter how skilled his martial arts were. He was capable of killing 1 or 2 fairies per person, and could still fight 5 or 6. If he had 90, he would have to face even more danger, and if he had more, he would only be able to get hammered. But at this moment, Mingguang armored his body, and Wang Xiao's strength instantly tripled. His defense also reached a level where his skin could defend against slashing and his skin could block arrows. Dozens of little demons were in front of Wang Xiao's eyes. Moreover, while Wang Xiao was harvesting the little demon, he could occasionally hear the sound of a clear spirit in his ears. Discovering the leather armor, weapon, will it be devoured? Discovered iron armor, ordinary product, will it be swallowed? After Wang Xiao impatiently let out a low growl of, "Devour all," the sound of the clear spirit heard in Wang Xiao's ear became, "Devour soft leather armor, weapon, speed +1, block +1, spiritual damage resistance +1, devouring iron armor, premium, strength +1, defense +1, martial damage resistance +1, devouring bamboo armor, mortal, intuition +1, dodge +1, mind damage resistance +1, watching Wang Xiao chattering away the little fairies, the yellow-faced man with golden armor, the black-faced man with black armor, and the chubby man in a green robe all had a somewhat unsightly expression. The black man, however, wanted to bow his hand to the golden-armored man and say, "General Yin, why don't you take those few people so that our brothers can have a tooth-beating ceremony?" "That's easy to say." The golden-armored man grinned with a ferocious smile and raised his hand to point to the bright light armor on Wang Xiao's body. "But Lord, the armor on that person's body." The black man turned his head to look at the chubby man in the blue robe. The chubby man nodded with a silly smile, and the black man responded with a loud laugh, Baojia should be a general." Jin Jiahan's smile was once again fierce and terrifying. Hee, you too, let's wait for someone from a certain family to come back. The golden armor Han's whirlwind-like killing general passed by, and his two claws were like a storm, attacking Wang Xiao. However, Wang Xiao, who was covered in armor, did not hide at all and allowed the golden armor Han to attack. However, a pair of claws that could break through gold and jade could not break through Wang Xiao's armor, only scratching white marks one after another. As Wang Xiao continued to fight and devour the armor of the fallen little demon under his feet, General Han Yin's pair of sharp claws gradually couldn't even dig out white marks on Wang Xiao's composite Mingguang armor. The black man, who was watching from the sidelines, said to the chubby man in a green robe, "That person is not simple." The chubby man heard the sound and understood the meaning. He clenched his fists and said, "Xiangshan Jun, don't worry. Let me go up and help General Yin." Black Han Xiangshan nodded and shouted for goodness, while the chubby man in a green robe glanced in the direction of Wang Xiao and roared, bowing his head and charging forward. The chubby man was extremely dynamic and powerful, charging like a flash flood, mud rushing straight, with astonishing momentum, but his speed was just average. If ordinary people were scared to move when they saw that chubby guy rushing in like this, but Wang Xiao, who had seen many fast and fierce things like mud trucks, oil tankers, trains, and high-speed trains in later generations, felt that it was much less meaningful. With a gentle gesture, he dodged the chubby guy's special attack. As the special envoy's momentum dissipated, his combat power became even more fragile, unable to move or transfer. Wang Xiao, who was attacking General Jin Jiahanin, would occasionally strike him with a cold blow. Although he could not directly kill and stab the rough and thick special envoy, after each blow, he also screamed in pain. "General Yin, don't panic," the two wise brothers of the special envoys. "I'll come too." Xiangshan Jun, who was observing the battle from the outside, saw that Wang Xiao had not been able to take down for a long time. He was very anxious and shouted loudly, saying that he was also coming to kill the general. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 5. The Great Tang Dynasty's Power and Anxiety. You are listening at novel-full.audio. Xiangshan Jun entered the arena, and Wang Xiao felt a great threat. Xiangshan Jun's speed was only slightly slower than General Yin, but his strength was also 30% higher than General Yin. He didn't need to use his claws to attack, but he just flashed his palm and swung his fist. Even if he clenched his fist, the big hand of the fan was like a small hammer. With General Yin's cooperation and coercion, he dealt Wang Xiao a few fierce blows. The composite Mingguang armor, completely fearless of General Yin's sharp claws, was hit with a thud sound under Xiangshan Jun's slap and fist, and Wang Xiao was also shaken by Xiangshan Jun's powerful power, causing his blood and energy to surge. Nate Chusher seized the opportunity, lowered his head and made a fierce charge, hitting Wang Xiao's chest protector, who was about to kick General Yin away and force Xiangshan Jun away with a knife. In this collision, Wang Xiao's horizontal knife fell from his hand, and his chest was dented by the bright armor protective goggles. However, he was knocked upside down and flew out, but there was no pain on his body. After flying backwards for more than 10 meters, Wang Xiao finally landed on the ground, but the remaining force did not dissipate. He stumbled and fell under his feet, rolling on the ground, and then collided with Chen Xuanzang and Du Jin standing behind him. Wang Xiao's rolling speed was fast, and his armor was hard. However, Chen Xuanzang and Du Jin, who were hit by Wang Xiao, had no protection and were immediately cut by the armor on Wang Xiao's body. A large amount of blood dyed Wang Xiao, who was originally a blood man, much brighter. Upon seeing this, Nate Chusher was overjoyed and thought that the opportunity to perform meritorious deeds had arrived. He immediately rushed forward and swung his claws to attack Wang Xiao. After hitting the person, Wang Xiao, who had stopped rolling, heard the roar of Nate Chushy's running, the ground shook, and his heart was clear. With both hands down, he suddenly jumped forward and rushed into Nate Chushi's arms. He lifted his elbow and hit Nate Chushi's abdomen. Dong! A sound like the sound of a bell ringing out came. Wang Xiao's raised elbow collided with Te Chusha, and a golden light burst out. General Yin immediately let out a scream, and his whole body stiffened, standing still. At this moment, he was stunned by the crowd in the audience. Wang Xiao also instinctively lowered his head to look at his hands and feet. When he saw blood on his elbow, his heart moved. After turning his head to look at the bloody mark on Chen Xuanzang's face, which was in a daze, his heart suddenly came to understand. At the next moment, Wang Xiao suddenly launched a thunderous attack. He pulled out his waist barrier sword with his backhand, grabbed the handle with both hands, and fiercely stabbed forward, piercing into the abdomen where he had just elbow hit Tetsushi. However, the ordinary barrier sword pierced through the body of Tetsushi, which could not be penetrated at all. With a stir in his hands, Tetsushi screamed again, but his body stiffness also recovered. Te Chusha roared and retreated, but Wang Xiao, who was dizzy from the roar, gritted his teeth and chased after the obstacle knife. He exerted force one by one with both hands, and the obstacle knife advanced a few points. In addition, Wang Xiao's hands were constantly stirring, and both sides were constantly shifting. The blade quickly expanded and lengthened, and a pile of debris flowed down the ground. Wow, Tetsushi! Brother, I'm here to save you. After Xianxia and General Yin woke up from a dream, their eyes were about to crack. They shouted and rushed forward. At this moment, Wang Xiao immediately drew his sword and retreated. The special warrior's eyes turned white and he fell to the ground without getting up. Wow, brother! Damn it, I'm going to swallow you alive. Just now, Te Chushi's strength was quite strong. Wang Xiao's arms were numb and his tiger's mouth trembled when he picked up his sword. However, Te Chushi's strength was inferior to that of Xianxia, the Black Great Han, and his speed was also less competitive than General Yin. At this moment, these two demons were attacking with anger, and the sound of wind and thunder roared as they attacked. The attack was like a mountain and stone covering the edge, and Wang Xiao dared not lightly attack its edge. Wang Xiao couldn't help but retreat. Along the way, he encountered the horizontal knife that had fallen before, but with a flick of his toe, he lifted it up and grabbed it in his hand, only to raise the knife and be wary of retreating. And Xianxia and General Yin were just shouting, both of them rushed to the dead, who had already shown the true nature of the green buffalo. They shouted and cursed at Wang Xiao, but did not step forward and take action. Du Jin also noticed Wang Xiao's fear of Xianxia and General Yin, as well as Xianxia and General Yin's fear of Wang Xiao. He felt the key to breaking the situation and shouted loudly, "Who are you two? Why are you blocking the way with little ghosts and monsters?" General Yin retorted in a muffled voice, "Who are you two? Why did you harm us and other important things? Did you harm our lives?" When General Yin asked this question, the faces of the two people in the field changed instantly. One was Wang Xiao. After hearing Te Chushi's rhetorical question, Wang Xiao thought to himself. Sure enough. Just ask me and Du Jin. They are coming towards me and Du Jin. The second one was Xianxia. After hearing General Yin's counter-question, Xianxia shouted in his heart that he was not good and was about to interrupt. However, Wang Xiao shouted loudly, "We are the envoys sent by the Tang Emperor to the west to collect scriptures." Wang Xiao raised his hand and pointed to the east. This is still the border of the Tang Dynasty. The Tang Dynasty soldiers are stationed not far away. If you quickly retreat and make way, then you will not be held responsible for the past and leave your lives. If you are still stubborn, the Tang heavenly soldiers will arrive soon, and you will surely be scattered with your souls flying away. Some shady and private matters can be easily done, but if one is too late and asks the other party to report it, then this shady and private matter cannot be done. Before reporting the Tang envoy's name, Wang Xiao and Du Jin were killed, so they were killed. But was it just killing the two followers of the westward journey monk? What a big deal. But after reporting the name of the Tang envoy, if Wang Xiao and Du Jin were still killed, that would be a great crime. What kind of crime is it to intercept and kill the Tang envoy within the territory of the Tang dynasty? This is simply an output of the Tang dynasty's riding face, sticking to the face and spitting, with little killing effect and extremely insulting. At that time, the Tang emperor was furious and the world was filled with anger. 1,000,000 Tang soldiers and 100,000 Tang generals swept out, not to mention ordinary demons and monsters. Even the demon king could not bear the panic of the Tang dynasty and became a divine general of the heavenly army. General Yin suddenly became empty and asked with a trembling voice, "Is that the Tang envoy?" Wang Xiao twisted his sword flower with a backhand and immediately shouted at the sky with the tip of his sword, "The power of the Tang dynasty is in panic, and anyone who dares will be killed." Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 6. Niuhuang Neidan Jia. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wang Xiao was like this, General Yin couldn't do anything better. He immediately said from his heart, "Shanjun, what should I do?" Shanjun glared at General Yin with dissatisfaction, feeling lost in his heart. Just pretend that you don't know the identity of the person in front of you, and continue to fight. Even if you can finally kill the two Tang envoys in front of you, but they have already spoken their words, and there are so many small demons in the field, and there is also a cowardly one on the side. This news will definitely not be able to hold on. In the end, either you will be slaughtered by the unreasonable Tang dynasty or you will escape the Tang dynasty's borders and live in a remote and impoverished place. If we stop here, it's easy for the Tang dynasty to say, but the side that assigned this task must be unwilling. Moreover, it seems that the armored Tang envoy is quite strong, and it is really unknown who will win or lose when they are about to fight. Just as Shanjun was in danger, a golden light tore open dark clouds and black smoke shot down from the sky, falling right in front of Shanjun and General Yin, but as soon as it fell, it had the potential to disappear. General Yin looked surprised, and Shanjun understood in his heart. He waved his hand and shouted, "No more fighting, no more fighting. We're wrong." Shanjun roared at the dozens of little demons watching the play outside, "Hurry up and make way for the envoys of the country, make way." A group of little demons were confused for a while, and then quickly made way for a path. Shanjun sneered and wanted to invite Wang Xiao and Du Jin on the road, but as soon as he made a request to tidy up, Wang Xiao coldly said, "Why, let's walk over first and then take the opportunity to ambush us, right?" "No, never." Shanjun quickly denied it, and General Yin shook his head like a tambourine. "I don't believe you." Wang Xiao raised his sword and pointed at Shanjun, shouting, "Quickly retreat. Let's retreat now, let's retreat now." Without saying a word, Shanjun and General Yin fled with only a dozen or so remaining little demons killed by Wang Xiao, without any attachment. Chen Xuanzang sat on the ground, panting heavily in his clothes, and Du Jin's tense body also relaxed. Only Wang Xiao remained cautious with his horizontal and obstructed swords in his hands. "Are you leaving now?" Du Jin looked at Wang Xiao with some disbelief. The military power of the Tang dynasty is not a joke. Wang Xiao and Yu Rongyan smiled for a moment. "Anything that provokes us will fly and disappear in a few years. Can they not be afraid?" Du Jin asked Wang Xiao, "Young man, what should we do?" "It's still important not to be careless. They are fairies and untrustworthy. It's impossible to say they might deceive us into killing them back." Wang Xiao said, "Brother Du, I'm on guard here. Take Elder Chen and quickly go down the pit to pick up our accompanying items, and then let's go quickly." Okay. Chen Xuanzang, who was still gasping for breath in Du Jin's breath, descended into the pit again, while Wang Xiao, after inspecting the surroundings for a while, ran towards the body of Nate Chusher. At this moment, General Yin still appeared in his original form, with a cut-open belly and a body length of nearly 10 meters. He had a high back and wide shoulders, and the body of a blue bison with black horns on his head was lying there. Special armor accessories found, do you want to add them? Buffalo leather lining, rank 5, agility plus 10, dodge plus 10, mana plus 10, constant temperature, toughness, and strength. Hey! Surprisingly, there are special accessories. Or is it a military rank? Wait a moment, soldier. Didn't it be Fan, Liang, Jing, and you before, but now how come there are soldiers again? Is this a higher grade than ordinary, good, refined, and excellent? Well, it should be. This soldier-level armor accessory actually has 3 special skills. At this moment, the cow-like body of Te Chusher was still bare and without any skin, and Wang Xiao didn't mind either. He put the horizontal knife aside and began to open his stomach with the obstructed knife. Soon, he took out a golden hard block about the size of a fist from his stomach. Wang Xiao giggled foolishly as he put a golden hard block into his leather pocket, then fumbled in his belly for a while, before finally taking out a white, soft ball the size of a finger. Wang Xiao didn't know what this soft and white round ball was, but he could be certain that it wasn't found on ordinary bulls, so he quickly installed it without saying a word. Later, Wang Xiao began to cut flesh, tendons, and horns. By the time Du Jin and Chen Xuanzang started throwing things out of the pit, the special warrior was almost shaved off by Wang Xiao, leaving only bones. Chen Xuanzang, exhausted from moving things and gasping for breath, was shocked when he saw a sentence about a skeleton. He then clasped his hands together and lowered his head to recite Amitabha. Du Jin pointed to the huge cow bones on the ground and the broken beef, asking, "What is this for?" Wang Xiao shrugged and said, "What else can we do? We'll eat later." After listening to Wang Xiao's words, Chen Xuanzang's face turned even whiter, and he recited Amitabha faster. Wang Xiao scanned the surroundings and looked at the items that had been taken out by Du Jin and Chen Xuanzang. He nodded, stepped forward to resist his 2 cow hind legs, grabbed 2 large bags of luggage, and said, "Let's go, let's leave here first." Wang Xiao and Du Jin were burdened with a heavy burden, even weak enough to be able to handle every grain. Chen Xuanzang, who was not diligent in his limbs, also resisted many rituals. The group walked for nearly an hour on foot. Although it was only just noon, the group of 3 people traveling westward had lost interest in moving forward in a few areas. Finally, before Chen Xuanzang was about to tire out, they found a place with a leeward side, near the water, and broad vision to camp. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 7. Startling sitting up at night. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A bonfire was set up, and Wang Xiao grilled beef and dry food. High-end ingredients only needed the simplest cooking, and the meat cut from Tetsushi's body was considered by Wang Xiao to be of much higher quality than A8. The rich meat aroma completely covered up the burnt and sweet taste of the roasted dry food, which made Chen Xuanzang, who was resting on a stone, unable to stop swallowing saliva while repeatedly reciting in a low voice, Amitabha, sin and sin. After neatly arranging the etiquette rules and preparing the tent hay needed for sleeping at night, Du Jin also kept swallowing saliva and came to Wang Xiao's side. His eyes were fixed on the beef skewered and baked around the campfire, but his mouth turned to Wang Xiao and said, "Young man, is it completely finished?" "Done." Wang Xiao frowned and pondered for a moment, then understood Du Jin's meaning and returned with a sneer. "Humph, brother Du, where are we now?" "That was just the first wave. This Du Jin's thoughts on eating meat were instantly snatched away by Wang Xiao's words, and his face towards Wang Xiao was filled with fear, except for disbelief. We're not in their plan, they definitely want to get rid of us. Wang Xiao picked up the roasted hu bing with a strong wheat aroma from the campfire and handed it to Du Jin, then glanced at Chen Xuanzang not far away. Du Jin understood and took the roasted hu cake and threw it at Chen Xuanzang. After settling Chen Xuanzang down, Du Jin returned. Wang Xiao had already picked up the grilled skewers and said to Chen Xuanzang, who was gnawing on the cake with his head down, "Elder, we won't eat in front of you, so you won't have to worry too much." After speaking, Wang Xiao greeted Du Jin with a skewer of meat and walked towards the nearby stream. Chen Xuanzang opened his mouth and wanted to speak, but his words came to a halt. After reciting Amitabha Buddha for a while, he silently nibbled on the hu cake. Wang Xiao and Du Jin arrived at the edge of the stream, eating meat skewers and whispering these words through the sound of the water. Of course, it was all Wang Xiao who spoke. Du Jin was listening, and when Wang Xiao first spoke, Du Jin didn't pay much attention. The meat skewers in his hand were beating fast, but as Wang Xiao spoke, Du Jin's mind was clearly not on the meat skewers, and his whole face was bewildered. Wang Xiao didn't speak as he looked at Du Jin's expression. He just silently ate meat and allowed enough time for Du Jin to accept it. After a long time, Du Jin suddenly shouted, "Ah, but isn't this what your Majesty arranged for us to follow Elder Chen? Why should we all accept? It's just doing their own business under the guise of your Majesty." Wang Xiao immediately interrupted the latter half of Du Jin's sentence and whispered with a smile, "However, your Majesty is amazing. The few henchmen we have set up are the key to our survival." "Are you saying?" Du Jin also understood and squinted his eyes, pondering for a while before slowly nodding his head. Wang Xiao understood Du Jin and breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. "Brother Du, cooperate well. Not only can we safely return to Chang'an, but we can also make immortal achievements." Du Jin immediately nodded and replied, "Young man, if there's anything you need, just speak up. Fool, do your best, do your best." Upon hearing this, Wang Xiao immediately leaned over to Du Jin and whispered in his ear. After a moment, Du Jin looked at Wang Xiao with a shocked expression on his face and said, "This wise brother, isn't this too good?" Wang Xiao asked in reverse, "Brother Du, do you want to die or live?" Du Jinli naturally said, "So why not say it?" Wang Xiao suddenly projected the wooden chisel in his hand onto the ground and plunged it into the soil. "What else did Brother Du say?" After hesitating for a moment, Du Jin nodded heavily and then let out a painful howl, "Alas! My mother is a Buddhist, and if she knew about this, she would definitely hit me." Wang Xiao smiled and replied, "Brother, you're alive. Auntie can only beat you. If you die, Auntie can only cry for you." It was getting dark, and Wang Xiao, who had been sleeping all afternoon, woke up and replaced Du Jin, who was sitting guard in front of the fire, with him to sleep. After adding a lot of firewood to the bonfire, Wang Xiao sat in front of an upright stone, roasting the fire to ward off the cold while grinding his knife with the gravel he carried with him. There are no clouds in the sky, but you can't see the stars or the moon. It's all black, whether it's the sky or the earth, it's terrifying black. Even with the light of the campfire, Du Jin could only see the situation around 20 meters. Wang Xiao was not sharpening his knife. He pulled out 2 horizontal knives and inserted them on the ground, while a ceremonial knife was pulled out and placed on his lap. He took out a small pottery bottle from his pocket, which Du Jin had just stuffed into before going to bed. Chen Xuanzang was injured, and as a doctor in the team, Du Jin is dutiful. Wang Xiao pulled open the cork of the small bottle and poured it down with 2 fingers. Suddenly, Wang Xiao's fingers were stained with red liquid. Then, Wang Xiao applied this red liquid to the edge of the instrument knife. After applying the E-knife, there were 2 horizontal knives, followed by 2 barrier knives. As Wang Xiao finished spitting out the barrier knives and prepared to apply blessing liquid to his horse spear, many Yulan light spots flickered around him. Wang Xiao immediately put down the horse spear, hung 2 horizontal knives on his belt, inserted the barrier knife into his waist, and carried the knife behind him. He stood up and lifted the horse spear with his toes, and with a backhand attack, the horse spear was caught. Du Jin. Wang Xiao, who was standing sideways, suddenly shouted loudly. Du Jin, who was sleeping soundly, got up and responded loudly, "What's wrong?" Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 8. Fire Reflecting Blood Blade. You are listening at novel.Audio. Coming. Wang Xiao shouted and reminded. Du Jin's face suddenly turned cold, and he withdrew his long sword from his waist with his backhand. He then raised his crossbow and took a few steps back to reach Chen Xuanzang, who was lying on his side to sleep. He called out softly, "Chen Elder, get up quickly, Chen Elder." Du Jin called out repeatedly, but Chen Xuanzang had no response at all. Wang Xiao was somewhat surprised and turned his head to take a look. However, he saw white light circulating on Chen Xuanzang, who was sleeping on his side on dry grass leaves. Wang Xiao pondered for a moment before suddenly coming over, but with a cold face, he shouted, "Brother Du, don't shout anymore, he can't get up." What? Du Jin misunderstood Wang Xiao's meaning and said in surprise, "Elder Chen died before he left the country." "It's not death, it's fainting." Wang Xiao raised the horse spear ring in his right hand and punched around the pitch-black area. "This is just for the 2 of us. Elder Chen won't wake up until we finish dealing with it, or until we finish dealing with it." Du Jin glanced at Wang Xiao and immediately stopped struggling. Standing in front of Chen Xuanzang, who was protected by the white light, he shouted loudly, "We are envoys sent by the Tang Emperor to the west to retrieve scriptures. Du Jin and Wang Xiao, what are you here for? Come out and meet us." "Oh, oh, oh." A wild beast roared in response to Du Jin, and then countless green spots appeared everywhere. The howling wind sounded, and the sound of claws and hooves came. "Here you go, be careful." Wang Xiao stepped away with his horse steps, gripping his spear with both hands, ready to learn. A black shadow broke through the darkness and rushed out into the flames. Wang Xiao squinted and saw a gray-haired wild wolf. Then, Wang Xiao stepped forward with a spear and swept across the air. The gray wolf, which was jumping in mid-air, was hit and flew 7 or 8 meters before landing. However, it shook its head, shook its body, and started fighting again, seemingly unharmed. Bang! With a muffled and brief jolt, a male deer, who had just rushed into the flames with its horns, was shot in the forehead by an iron arrow. However, the iron arrow removed some fur and was bounced off. The male deer only stumbled slightly, then charged towards Wang Xiao with its horns down on its head. This. Du Jin looked down in amazement at the crossbow he had already fired in his hand. He couldn't believe that at a distance of less than 20 meters, his crossbow couldn't penetrate the head of a deer. Wang Xiao stepped forward and swept back, causing the male deer to fall but quickly get up again. Surprisingly useless. Wang Xiao was furious and threw away his horse spear. He drew out 2 horizontal swords from his waist and chased after him. The 2 swords were directly placed on the neck of the male deer that had not yet stood up. With a twist, the head of the male deer that had reached the antler was immediately knocked down by the owl, without any obstruction. TSK, the golden cicada card blessing liquid is very useful. Use that treasure. With a backhand slash, Wang Xiao, who had previously been a gray wolf, roared loudly towards the stunned Du Jin. He also kicked his feet towards the campfire, and many burning firewood flew out in all directions. The light of the fire instantly expanded Wang Xiao's view, but he saw many wild beasts surrounding him, grinning at the two people and showing a fierce look. Beasts, Dujin has seen many before, but being surrounded by so many beasts is the first time. Looking at the fierce eyes and saliva dripping from the mouths of those beasts, whether they are carnivorous or herbivorous, Dujin felt his legs and stomach spinning. We are envoys sent by the Emperor of Tang to the west to retrieve scriptures, including Dujin, Wang Xiao, and others. We will not retreat yet. Wang Xiao was shocked to hear Dujin tremble and shout intermittently. However, after chopping off the head of a deer, he took some time to turn around and glance at Dujin. Dujin saw Wang Xiaowen's gaze and quickly explained, "You said, as long as there is an opportunity, shout our names. Do you know why before they were all humanoid monsters, now they have all turned into beasts?" Wang Xiao pointed back before raising his sword, "It's just because they don't want to hear our names." Dujin fell silent, lowered his head and silently took out a small bottle, opened the cork, and inserted the crossbow into it. As Dujin was guarding in front of Chen Xuanzang, the wild beasts in the field completely ignored him and only fiercely charged towards Wang Yong. Wang Xiao wielded both horizontal swords and slashed back and forth around the campfire. All the beasts that jumped out were either quickly beheaded by the owl's head or cut into several pieces when they entered the range of the flames. The wild beasts did not seek Dujin, and Dujin was able to calmly support Wang Xiao with his crossbow. Dujin's crossbow arrows were soaked in enchanting materials, no longer as weak as before. Every time, a crossbow pierced through the demon beasts, without any disadvantage. With the joint efforts of Wang Xiao and Dujin, in just 2 moments, a thick circle of beast corpses lay around the campfire. The high-intensity battle for 2 minutes made Wang Xiao gasp for breath, and his face was covered in sweat. Dujin, who was guarding in front of Chen Xuanzang, was not doing well either. In these 2 moments, he had pulled the crossbow string at least 15 times, and his entire right arm was swollen and his hand was trembling violently, making it somewhat unstable to hold the crossbow. At this moment, among the fierce beasts on the periphery, there was a huge creature standing up. Roar! The giant creature that stood up was a big black bear. With a loud roar, the surrounding beasts received orders, whimpering and roaring, and fiercely attacked. And the big black bear standing there was also thumping and jumping towards the flames. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 9. Shooting horses to force the enemy out. You are listening at novel.Audio. The big black bear next to him seemed difficult to deal with, and Wang Xiao had a familiar feeling about it. Suddenly, he felt a daze, and Wang Xiao suddenly realized that the big bear was Xiangshan Jun. Wang Xiao was fully alert to the rushing black bear, but Dujin, who was behind Wang Xiao, exclaimed in surprise, "Wang Xiao." At the next moment, Wang Xiao felt a bad wind coming from his back. Suddenly looking back, I saw a colorful tiger leaping towards me from the high mountain rocks. The big black bear is just a feint, the fierce tiger attacking from behind is the ultimate move. Wang Xiao hurriedly turned around and was about to lift his sword upwards, but the colorful tiger still pounced, with its 2 large front paws pressed directly on his shoulders, and its bloody mouth rushed towards Wang Xiao's neck before reaching out. Wang Xiao then knelt down and shrunk his head under the downward pressure from his shoulders. Not only did he relieve the pressure from his shoulders, but he also managed to avoid the foul-smelling tiger's mouth. He thrust his hands upwards and stabbed the tiger's abdomen with 2 horizontal knives. Ding! Shoo! A pair of horizontal knives in Wang Xiao's hand made a long but not deep cut in the belly of the fierce tiger, and one shattered the tip of the knife. The fierce tiger fell to the ground, and Wang Xiao stood up. However, before Wang Xiao could turn his body around, the black bear stood up and came over as a killing general. A pair of bear paws were used to patting Wang Xiao's head and back. Bang! Just at the critical moment, a sound of a broken bowstring rang out, and an iron arrow flew out, plunging into the neck of the giant black bear. The big black bear, slapped in its palm, immediately stumbled 2 steps, and a pair of bare paws brushed past Wang Xiao's body. Wang Xiao also took advantage of this opportunity to turn his body around. He glanced at the 2 knives in his hand, but saw the sharp knife in his right hand, which was still red and covered in blood. The horizontal knife in his left hand also had a lot of blood on it, and the red coating on the blade edge was taken away by the flowing blood. Fortunately, the red line of the sword was still intact. Wang Xiao's heart was clear. He raised his hand and threw the horizontal knife in his hands at the black bear, which was howling while covering his neck. Then, with a backhand pull, he pulled out the instrument knife on his back and clenched it with both hands to confront the bear and tiger. Yidao and Hengdao are similar in size, style, and appearance, but slightly longer than Hengdao. There is also a dragon sparrow ring on the handle, which is named Yidao because it is commonly used for ceremonial ceremonies. As for the other beasts in the field, Wang Xiao didn't care at all. The big black bear is the lord of Xianxia, and the colorful tiger is the general Yin. These 2 beasts bring more pressure to Wang Xiao than the countless other beasts surrounding him combined. Fortunately, I slaughtered the Tetsushi before, otherwise I wouldn't have had to fight a big buffalo at home now. The big black bear roared even more mournfully and fiercely, jumping and rushing towards him again. Wang Xiao dodged and then attacked with his double swords. And the colorful tiger roared in a circle, intending to walk to the back of Wang Xiao. Du Jin raised the strings of his crossbow and loudly reminded, Wang Xiao, back, tiger, back. Wang Xiao had already paid half of his attention to the tiger. He was fighting against the big black bear, but he shouted loudly, Duj, don't bother me, shoot the horse. Okay. Du Jingao responded and picked up the long sword he had stepped on beside him, wiping it towards the neck of Chen Xuanzang, who was sleeping on his side. Buzz. A muffled sound came, followed by a violent burst of white light. All the wild beasts in the field were trembling, then froze in place. The big black bear struggling with Wang Xiao and the colorful tiger wandering in the field looking for opportunities to sneak in were also motionless. Wang Xiao took advantage of this opportunity to stab the neck of the big black bear with both hands, and the specially coated instrument knife instantly pierced the bleeding neck of the big black bear without any obstacles. The big black bear let out a scream and raised its paw to slap Wang Xiao's knife, but Wang Xiao suddenly twisted his hands, stroked hard, and then pulled back with the knife. The neck of the big black bear was not only stirred up with a big hole, but also directly sliced open with a huge opening. The big black bear couldn't make any sound, and its raised claws changed direction and covered its neck. However, it fell to the ground with a loud bang and couldn't get up again. The burst white light on Chen Xuanzang's body dissipated, and Du Jin, squinting his eyes and suppressing tears, shouted, Wang Xiao, the sword cannot approach. Use your crossbow, the crossbow that has touched that thing. Du Jin shook off the long arrow with one hand and pulled out the red-headed crossbow arrow that had already been installed on his crossbow with a backhand clasp. He raised his hand like Chen Xuanzang, who was shrouded in white light, piercing through it. Suddenly, a white light shot down from the air, but it was thrown onto Chen Xuanzang before Du Jin waved his arrow and approached. The previously dissipated white light suddenly became thick and transparent again. At this moment, Du Jin's red-headed iron arrow approached, and the rich white light under the red-headed iron arrow was like a condensed oil warming knife, instantly retreating and dissipating, completely unstoppable. Stop it! A hasty shout came from the air, but the shout failed to stop Du Jin or Wang Xiao, who turned and headed towards the colorful tiger standing on the spot. The instrument knife in Wang Xiao's hand was accustomed to piercing through the fierce tiger's eyes. Wang Xiao fiercely kicked his feet and exerted all his strength. The instrument knife entered without a handle and emerged through his chest. Wang Xiao twisted the handle, causing 2 large blood holes to appear on the colorful tiger's head and chest. A large amount of blood surged out, and Wang Xiao drew the knife back, causing the colorful tiger to fall to the ground and die. On this side, Wang Xiao took the opportunity to deal with Xiong Hu, while on the other side, Du Jin also pressed the red-headed iron arrow against the neck of Chen Xuanzang, who was sleeping soundly. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 10. Why are you two here? You are listening at novel.Full.audio. Wang Xiao glanced back at the progress on Du Jin's side, but with a backhand flick of the knife, the blood foam on the blade instantly dispersed. Since it's all making a sound, let's come out and meet again. There was no response from anyone in the field, and the wild beast still remained standing still. Wang Xiao glanced around with a sneer on his face and said, I only dare to act behind my back, dare I not meet people in person? There is still no answer in the field. Wang Xiao turned around and headed towards Du Jin and Chen Xuanzang, but when he approached Du Jin, he shouted again, since that's the case, then don't blame us for being ruthless. Duj, take action. Suddenly, another white light shot through, but this time it went straight towards Du Jin. Du Jin's eyes froze, his body stiffened, and he leaned forward in a daze. The wild beasts in the field instantly resumed their actions. Their eyes turned red and their ferocity surged, roaring and roaring towards Wang Xiao. However, Wang Xiao turned a blind eye to the wild beasts around him, threw away the ceremonial sword in his hand, and pulled out the two barrier swords from his waist with his back hand. However, he stabbed Chen Xuanzang with a knife aimed at his heart and neck. The white light on Chen Xuanzang's body could not withstand the two obstructed swords in Wang Xiao's hand, and the tip of the sword advanced rapidly towards the target without any obstruction. Another white light suddenly emerged from the air, rushing down towards Wang Xiao. The white light came first and shot at Wang Xiao before he hit the target with his sword in both hands. However, the bright light armor on Wang Xiao's body shook and made a hula sound, and the white light disappeared. Wang Xiao had no other reaction, and his hands holding the knife continued to exert force to approach. No way. Stop it. No way. Don't harm the holy monk. The surrounding air was filled with shouts and screams, and it was feared that 2 or 3 dozen people were scattered. Moreover, many colorful lights were shooting towards Wang Xiao. In an instant, various rays of light burst out from Wang Xiao's back, with flames and frost gathering in a dazzling manner. Wang Xiao also screamed in pain, but his hands controlled a pair of barrier knives and pressed them against Chen Xuanzang's neck, touching his heart. Wang Xiao paused with both hands and looked around, only to see that the wild beasts around dared not come over 3 meters in advance. As he looked up at the sky, there were many figures hanging in the air. Wang Xiao knew in his heart what was happening in the air and grinned at the sky, hee, let's fight chicken and egg, fish will die and the net will be broken. After Wang Xiao finished speaking, his hands exerted force at the same time. Suddenly, blood flowed from Chen Xuanzang's neck and a cluster of plum blossoms seeped out of his chest. In this moment, the air was boiling and he shouted loudly, but his tone and words made Wang Xiao happy. He had won the bet. Slow down, slow down. Stop fighting, stop fighting. You're amazing, we'll admit defeat. Wang Xiao's hands tightened slightly, but he looked up at the sky. The shadows and figures in the sky disappeared in the next moment, and the entire sky returned to its dark appearance. The surrounding beasts twisted and retreated, but in just a moment, they all dissipated. The previously chaotic scene was now silent, leaving only the sound of crackling flames. If there were not a large number of animal corpses and blood on the ground, it would feel like everything just now was just an illusion. Du Jin's body, which was originally stiff and lying on the ground, softened a little, but then he woke up with a groan. He stood up and looked around in confusion before recalling what had happened. He finally calmed down when he saw that there were no wild beasts around him. Turning his head, he saw Wang Xiao still wielding a knife against Chen Xuanzang, and quickly said, "Young master, it's all over, let go of Chen Elder." "Is it over?" Wang Xiao's arms muscles were tense, his knife still pressing against Chen Xuanzang, and a disdainful expression appeared on his face. Humph. Chen Xuanzang, who was pressed under his body by Wang Xiao, let out a groan, but his eyeballs under his eyelids shook violently as he was about to wake up. Just as Chen Xuanzang opened his eyes, Wang Xiao slammed his head into Chen Xuanzang, causing him to snort again and fall into a coma. My dear brother, this. Du Jin was startled, but soon realized it. He pursed his lips and remained silent, picking up his crossbow and long sword again, and cautiously looking around. Wang Xiao and Du Jin waited for a moment longer, but there was still no other sound around except for the sound of fire. Wang Xiao sneered and said, Brother Du, you count dozens. If you don't recognize how to deal with the aftermath after 10 counts, then this Chen Xuanzang will be dead. Without hesitation, Du Jin began counting, 10, 9, 8, 7. But it was only after counting to 7 that footsteps could be heard from the periphery. Du Jin immediately raised his crossbow and aimed at where the footsteps came from. Brother, there are footsteps. Wang Xiao also heard the sound of footsteps, but they were slow and steady, with each step making a sound, as if he was not worried. Wang Xiao raised his eyebrows, and his hands holding the knife exerted even more force. Both of his blocked swords were trapped in Chen Xuanzang's fair and delicate flesh. The original footsteps immediately quickened a lot, and a voice came from an elderly man who sounded full of vitality but was quite anxious. Alas, both of you, what's the reason for this? Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th.